part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Podcast 616, the official podcast of Earth 616. I am your host, Damon Royster, and today, oh boy, we're bringing it all to a close. We are talking, we took a break last week for a little bit of Morbius action, but we're back because we have unfinished business with Blade. We are finishing up the Blade franchise with the third film, Blade Trinity, aka The Final Chomp. I can't believe we're doing this movie, but we have to. It's crazy to me how many superhero movies end on a bad one. Their franchises. The last one's usually the worst, and really sucks when you decide to do franchise by franchise on a podcast. Someone who can relate to that is a podcaster talking about franchises in his own time. Please welcome to your ears my first guest. He is a podcaster, and he is also Chicago's #1 Beyonce impersonator. Please welcome Cody Lindley. Cody!
It's tattooed on my butt cheek. That's my favorite line from this movie.
Cody, how do you sleep at night?
Oh, terribly.
No, but have you been? Cody, you were last on the podcast to talk about Spider-Man 3, and now you're back for Blade 3.
I only come for bad finale finishers.
And, I respect you for that. But how are you? How are you, really?
Oh, I'm doing great. Getting married later this year. The podcast with Ryan, somebody else that I host a podcast with, Franchise Fanatics, is going great.
Mm-hmm.
Damon guested and did Scream 2.
Yes.
Although thinking about this, I should have had him do Scream 3.
Absolutely not. Nope.
But I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Damon.
Absolutely. I hate Scream 3, and also I'm more of a 2 guy. I'm more of a sequel. I'm more of a sequel guy. I like the sequels.
Yeah, I get it.
All right. And this is so crazy. Okay, so Cody's our first guest, but as you know, I do have a direct line to a certain actor. He's bailed on me lots of times, but I'm fairly confident he would come for this one. This is, I would say, his entryway into the superhero genre. And I'm just really excited to have him. So I'm going to, invite him into the Zoom. So please welcome to your ears, the star of Blade Trinity, Ryan Reynolds.
It's me, the man who played the role of male nurse in the hit comedy Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle, Ryan Reynolds.
Listeners, you're being lied to. Just like if someone said Blade Trinity is a good movie, this is a lie. This, I don't know why I keep getting your emails mixed up. This is Ryan Kappmeyer. Hey, Ryan, what's up?
Not a whole lot. Well, I do. My email is ryan.reynolds@gmail.com. So that could be why.
You see what I mean?
And his is Ryan.Reynolds@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan, do you want to stick around and talk about another Ryan Reynolds superhero movie?
Unfortunately, yes. And I only say unfortunately because this is the one we're talking about.
Yes. Compared to the other Ryan Reynolds movies you talked about, Deadpool 1 and X-Men Origins, where do you rank this Blade Trinity?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, I think by the largest margin imaginable, Deadpool is in first place. And I don't say that because Deadpool is like an incredible movie. I say that because X-Men Origins, as we all know, is trash. And this movie, also not great. Great cast. Love this cast. I'm sure we'll get into that. But the movie itself,
Actually, I don't think we're going to discuss Blade Trinity today.
No. We're going to get into it. Okay, so I've already discussed with these two boys that they're not as familiar with Blades 1 and 2, or like it's not fresh in your minds. But what I wanted to talk to you both about is the franchise of it all. Like, Cody Lindley, how does this movie feel? Does it feel like an ending to something? Like, do you think they've completed the franchise of Blade?
No, because they did a series after this where they recast everyone, and it was canonically tied in. So that's, I think, one of the issues with like Blade 1 is very fun and it's great. And then Blade 2, like I said off mic, you get the classic, he's got to team up with the bad guys. But like how they treat Whistler in this is a great indication of they have no idea what they want to do. Like I listened to your first episode on Blade 1 and it was like Whistler commits suicide, and then Blade 2, he shows up 2 years later as a vampire, and you're like, what is happening?
Right. And then he dies again in this.
And then, you know, it's wild. I think that the studio was really just like, what's going to work, and then we're going to run with it, and it just never quite clicked, which is unfortunate. Because Wesley Snipes' Blade was great, even though, from what I hear, production wise, a nightmare to work with.
I heard that as well. He referred to Ryan Reynolds as a cracker a lot on set, which
honestly, good for him.
I mean, I think that's why Ryan Reynolds didn't fly off the handle as much as he could have in his career. I think he remembers working with Wesley Snipes. Ryan Kappmeyer. It's weird that you're not Ryan Reynolds, but talk to me about the 2 new additions or the 6 new additions to Blade. I feel like this title is a misnomer. I was going to ask you, how do you feel about the 2 new cast members, or you could talk about the entire 6-person cast they added.
Yeah, it's strange. You were kind of talking about, does this wrap up the trilogy, or I guess the franchise? And it's just like, I don't know, they introduced so much new stuff that they kind of wrap up. But yeah, let's talk about some of these new characters. So I'm gonna only refer to them as either their actual name, or in Triple H's case, his wrestling name. You got Parker Posey, who's always a treat. You gotta love Parker Posey. She's always incredible. The role she has in this, not awesome. You're both wagging your fingers at me. Why?
I've got an asterisk for Parker Posey. I like Parker Posey, but she never makes a movie better. You know what I mean? Like, if the movie's bad, it stays bad. Like, she's not someone,
I see,
like a Hugh Jackman, like, someone like, oh, let's put him in there and it elevates a film. Like, it would have been bad if Hugh Jackman wasn't here. I think Parker Posey, something about her avant-gardeness, she's like, I don't know, like, she doesn't help a situation. She just kind of does her Parker Posey thing.
Yeah, I mean, but I think it comes down to how Danica was written, because like you have this hoity-toity vampire leader.
You use the name.
Yeah, Danica Talos. Here's the thing. I think if she had been able to be funnier with it and play with the status, then we would have gotten a really good Parker Posey performance. But instead, she's forced to like kind of growl through vampire teeth half the time and be like, "I'll kill you, Blade." And I'm like, that's not what you get Parker Posey for.
True. All right.
I'm sorry, Ryan. I interrupted.
It's all good.
Please continue. Who else is in this movie?
Oh, then you have Triple H, who's just there to be big and kind of like get pissed off every once in a while, and then like throw someone or stomp on something. He's a wrestler that was in a movie in the early 2000s. What do you want?
Oh yeah.
What do you expect?
I can't prove this, but I fully believe Triple H improvised all of his lines. I feel like they didn't write a single line for him.
So funnily enough, he was supposed to have a much smaller role, and then because the director didn't want to work with him, and then he was really fun to work with and would make like fun jokes. So they're like, all right, let's make his role bigger.
Oh yeah, because Triple H, he's from the era of like The Rock and John Cena, like that. The years of wrestling that I actually watched. Not to brag, but when I watched wrestling, all those wrestlers became famous actors.
Yeah,
the Damon Royster secret of it all.
Then you have Dracula / Drake. Has he ever been referred to as Drake in any other way? I was so confused with that. I was like, why do they keep calling him Drake? Like, why not Drag or something if you want to like give him a nickname? Yeah, that was weird. It's also interesting that like other versions of like Bram Stoker's Dracula still exist in this world despite this Dracula being there, and like he's very melodramatic. He's like a soap opera character. Like, he's always got his shirt off. He's very melodramatic. Just, I don't know, not great.
And this actor is from Prison Break, correct?
He is from Prison Break, a show that had one good season and then really went off the rails pretty quickly.
Sounds like TV. Yeah, it's weird that he had more of a career after Blade Trinity, after he played Dracula, which you would think you would cast a bigger name actor for, the villain of a trilogy movie. Ryan, I don't know why you're bearing the lead. Talk to me about the Trinity. Talk to me about the Trinity.
Are you talking about Ryan Reynolds, Jessica Biel, and Wesley Snipes?
Yes, Ryan. Okay. I am talking about that.
All right. Ryan Reynolds in this movie. Hannibal King is his name. I mean, he's just playing Deadpool. He is Deadpool. And like, this movie had to be why he got the role of Deadpool, right? Like, he's just like just talking off to everybody, talking about how the tracking device is in his left butt cheek. Then she slaps him, then it's in his right butt cheek. He's just being a smart ass.
Yeah.
He one point in time shows everyone his pubes to prove that he used to be a vampire.
That my glasses fogged up. I had to leave the room. I was like, nope.
That was a deep showing of his torso, I guess. I don't know. Whatever you want to call it. They went about as far as they could get with it, still being a movie that you didn't have to be a certain age to get into.
And then our little hero, our little arrow slinger.
Oh yeah, Jessica Biel. Abigail Whistler. I have the IMDb page pulled up now, so I can actually refer to them as their character names.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, interesting story. She is the daughter of Chris Christopherson's Whistler. I thought she was probably the best in this movie in terms of like acting and everything. I don't know. She's got some like pretty cool action, like she pretends to be whoever in the I see the motions you're making back and forth. What do you want me to say? No one's great in this movie. I'm not saying give her, retroactively give her an Oscar, but I don't know.
Which we do have the power to do on this podcast.
She's more enjoyable than a lot of people in this movie. Dominic Purcell is just what the fuck is he doing?
I will say Cody is correct. Podcast 616 was given authority to give out at least 3 Oscars over the course of our lifetime. We've yet to give out one. So we could
excellent.
We could give a best supporting actress nom to Jessica Biel, Ryan Kappmeyer's favorite actress of all time.
Correct. Moving on. I want to talk about Wesley Snipes. I love Wesley Snipes in general as an actor. He's great in so many things. He can do action. He can do comedy. The biggest thing I want to address with this character here is, does it not sound like he's talking like he has plastic vampire teeth in? Like, it sounds like his mouth is full throughout this whole movie. Am I wrong?
And actually, so even though listeners, producer Michael is not on the call today, but he did do research on both of my guests. And Cody Lindley, you were actually the orthodontist on set. You actually helped fit Wesley Snipes for his teeth for this film. Can you talk about what that process was like and what Snipes wanted?
Yeah, he snapped a lot. He tried to bite me every time, and he'd go, "Sniped you," which was the worst part. But he demanded we tried to put in really high-end prosthetic teeth to be the fangs, but he kept going to a dollar store every morning that he insisted had the best coffee and bringing plastic vampire teeth that he made me put in his mouth for him. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, just let Cody do his job. Let the man cook.
Come on, I'm the best props guy in Hollywood and the second best Beyonce impersonator in the U.S., the best in Chicago.
Yeah. God, it's a shame. Oh, what is her name? Trinity K. Bonet probably has to beat. Look her up. Cody Lindley, what did you think of the chompers on Wesley Snipes in this?
Yeah, I mean, it's just Wesley Snipes is, what he's doing with those chompers and most of this? Chewing the dang scenery. Again, talking about a production thing that they talk about. Apparently, he spent most of the shooting time just smoking weed in his trailer. It would come out high as heck for shoots. And a lot of times he would just be like, I don't want to come out for this scene. Like, I think this movie is what got him such a negative view of working with him, because he was like, put a CGI in, put a stand in, and I'm not going to go out there and like be back shot for this scene today.
Truly. Which is such a shame, because he was, the first 2 movies, it seemed like he was having a really fun time. I think he really liked this character, and I don't want to get into the psychology of Wesley Snipes and when does this movie come out? 2004. But I wonder if he felt a little threatened that they were, because this does have that like WB early 2000s, like get the young hot actors in to replace the old actors, because it feels like they literally replace Chris Christopherson with hot Jessica Biel, who's the daughter of Whistler. Which,
and you know what? I still prefer Chris Christopherson. Give me those legs any day over Jessica Biel's.
Those legs, we'll talk about that. Can I just say, I can fix this movie real easy. Whistler had 2 kids, Ryan Reynolds, Jessica Biel, brothers and sisters. Like, just making them siblings and children of Blade's mentor makes, I don't want to say it raises the stakes, but at least gives the movie stakes. And like,
ironically,
wooden stakes.
God damn you two.
I will say, I'm surprised how often superhero movies of this time, and this movie is big in it, it just like throws characters from comic books at you, knowing that fans will recognize them. But this was some deep cuts. Like, I love Marvel comics, and I don't know if I know who Hannibal King is. I don't know if I've ever read a comic he's in. So just to like throw a character in and him be like, I used to be a vampire and I used to do this, and here's all the true things about me in the comic. It's like, can you just like intro him into this movie? Which I know a lot of people hate origin stories always being a thing, but it's like, we don't know who this character is.
Yes.
And like all these characters just kind of seem boring Matrix ripoffs that are snarky.
And I want to, that's such a good point that I wanted to talk about in terms of like introing these new characters. You know, Ryan's favorite, Jessica Biel, gets like a whole intro scene where she's like a bag woman, you know, that classic grocery bag full of bread and kale, gonna make a fucking kale sandwich. And I think, okay, I'm gonna call out sexism. Can you believe in Blade Trinity? It feels like it's backdoor sexism because they're like, well, we know people are gonna respect Ryan Reynolds, but we're not sure they'll respect Jessica Biel. So let's give her this badass fight scene to introduce her. But then we won't do that for anyone else. Like, we need this. But like, I don't know. I feel like she doesn't talk much in this movie. What is her name? Abigail
Whistler, yeah.
Like, her dad blows up and she barely has a reaction to it.
There's also this really confusing thing where he's like, I know that Whistler had a wife and 2 daughters. And then she's like, I'm a daughter from that you didn't know about. And I was like, why aren't you just one of the 2 daughters we knew about?
Hey, where are those 2 daughters?
Yeah, where are they at?
I also loved how she says the phrase, I was born out of wedlock. Like, who actually says that about themselves if they're actually
the 1400s? You're
right.
born out of wedlock.
I was born pretty quickly after my parents got married, and I always like to ask my mom, was I born out of wedlock? So I use that phrase a lot. I wasn't, but she gets very upset as a good Christian Southern woman. She's like, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Sorry, I don't want to. That's your mom.
No, please. Hey, that's fine.
But I'm drawn to that voice. Ryan Kappmeyer, not Reynolds, you are currently wearing a Abigail t-shirt. So walk me through her journey and how you were just digging on her in this movie.
Yeah, I that opening scene, I thought, this is just an old woman wandering the streets of New York City, a very dangerous place. Does this take place in New York City? I don't know.
Unclear.
Okay, well, whatever sort of Gotham, Chicago, somewhere where there's a train where you go down some steps.
Mm-hmm.
And, she just wants to go home and enjoy her nice lettuce sandwich, as you already pointed out. And then, she just wants to protect her baby, and her baby who she wrote on permanent marker, fuck you on, which is like sort of a recurring theme throughout this movie. And then she just beats everyone up, and she has a weapon. Here's something that's beyond illogical. It is half as hot as the sun that it is half as hot as the sun, and she just busts it out in front of children, herself, everyone else, as if that wouldn't destroy everyone and everything on the planet, I imagine.
Well, Ryan, I feel like what you're not understanding is it's half as hot as the sun.
Right,
which is still quite hot. No, very hot.
You're not getting it, because if it was fully as hot as the sun, that would be unbearable. But half,
okay,
half the sun, like a cloudy day.
I should be able to suspend my disbelief a bit more. Yeah, I guess they just put on a little SPF and they're all fine, huh?
Yeah.
Also, I'll get back to Abigail if you want me to, and I'll tell you more about my T-shirt. But they use UV lights throughout these movies.
Yes.
Is that's not the same as sunlight, though? UV is artificial lighting. So how does it kill vampires in the same way as direct sunlight? Cody, you were going to explain something?
Yeah, so the UV spectrum is what they're replicating with these lights that have the same UV spectrum as the sun. So it's basically canned daylight. But does that make sense? No, but that is the logic behind it.
I thought they were just like using grocery store light bulbs to...
Yeah, they're using they raided a college dorm and are killing vampires.
I don't know. The way they explained it, I was like, okay, whatever.
I mean, yes. I mean, it's hard because this was like heavily used in Blade 2, the UV lights, because that was the only way to kill those like new vampires that turns out the vampires made. I feel like we're getting farther away from what could have been a great plot. The framing of Blade. Um, Ryan Kappmeyer, we did some research, and you actually were you came up with the plan for framing Blade. Can you walk us through how they framed our hero?
Yeah, so what we did is we found a lot of Wesley Snipes outfits from other movies. Tu Wong Fu, Thank You for Everything, Love Julie Newmar. White Men Can't Jump. We took his sneakers.
You can't bring Tu Wong Fu into this conversation.
That's the Blade Trinity.
Too good a movie to bring into Blade Trinity.
Oh my god, I was not ready.
We had his actual DNA. You know, we took his butterfly knife from Jack City, his razor blades, everything, and we just kind of sprinkled them throughout Gotham / New York / Chicago / Washington DC, wherever there's no sunlight and tall buildings, essentially. And so that was what was supposed to kind of bring him back into this movie, is like, if we actually find Wesley Snipes' DNA and frame him for these murders, it'll be like a method. You hear of method acting, but you don't hear a lot about method productions.
You never hear about that.
Yes, because this was the only time it was ever tried. And let me tell you, it failed. It absolutely failed.
Wow.
I am blacklisted from Hollywood. I shouldn't be talking about this movie, actually. I'm gonna have to go into hiding after this. And by hiding, I mean I'm just gonna go sleep in Cody's guest room for like 3 weeks until they all stop.
No one knows to look there.
No. Just call yourself Ryan Reynolds. You'll be fine.
Oh yeah.
I liked this plot in the movie of like the vampires are trying to frame Blade, but it's really just to distract him while they're extracting Dracula, aka Drake. Started from the bottom, now we're here. Cody Lindley.
Hello.
Do you know who James Remar is?
No.
He was the lead FBI
agent.
detective.
Yeah.
The detective, yeah.
I know that face. I had to look up, but yes, okay, I am familiar with James Remar.
Yes, Dexter's father. He's great. I just think this would have been, I don't know. I feel like this was like a different movie. This is, okay, I guess I just wanted to highlight this because this is one of the 3 movies that are happening in this one movie.
Yeah.
That maybe that's the Blade Trinity. There are 3 plots. But it seems like just such a missed opportunity of like the cops raid Blade, and they ultimately are the ones who, well, he blew himself up, but they kill Whistler. And yeah, he's just framed for killing a familiar because the vampires put in the fix. I'm sad. I'm sad that it didn't go anywhere. Cody Lindley, do you have any thoughts on what could have been?
I do. So you're right. You have the 3 movies of this movie, which is, we have the police framing Blade, which is a cool thing on paper. We have a final showdown with what I'm going to start calling Dracula instead of Dracula, which is also a great idea. Like, let's bring it to the head. And then the third is like, whoa, Blade's got a team now, and Natasha Lyonne's wearing sunglasses. Turns out she's blind. It took me a while to realize that, because everyone's wearing sunglasses.
It took you a while to realize that. Hold on. Can I interject for a moment?
Please.
Please.
What?
Ryan is standing on his chair. He's furious.
I'm furious. I put on sunglasses
ripping
to
his
channel my Natasha Lyonne. Cody and I like to, sometimes I razz Cody during podcasts, and it kind of goes back and forth, but it's pretty clear, like from the jump, right? She's like reading in Braille and like.
No, I understand, but like when they introduce the Night Stalkers, I mean, like everyone has sunglasses, and that is like the first indicator that Natasha Lyonne is blind, and it's just like all of a sudden. Also, maybe I was a little distracted while watching this. All of a sudden, I realized she had a cane, and I went, "Oh." But anyway, on paper, all not bad plots, but in like action, terrible, because like James Remar, the end of this movie, Dracula is dead, and he walks in to see Blade's body, and like he just is looking around like, oh my goodness, vampires are real. And I'm like, we never had that struggle. We had no scenes with you where you cared about this. Like,
like what the like where are we with the human race understanding vampires? Like, I just some get it and they devote their lives to destroying them, and others are like, no, not real.
Also, the police are like all familiars in most of the movies, and this detective isn't and has no concept. It's just like it's inconsistent, which I think is a lot to do with this movie. Like, we start the movie, we haven't even discussed this, but we start the movie in like Syria or something.
Desert. Yeah,
and it's just like we don't even like, obviously we get why, but it's just like such a hard right turn, and then we do such a hard left turn to framing Blade immediately, and it's like we just didn't get a break, and they were like, we don't have time to these three plots all have to happen, we don't have time to make sense.
Well, before we take a break, I think there's one last Night Stalker I would like to talk about. Patton Oswalt. A crime we didn't see him get the chomp. We saw his dead body after the vampire attack, but I think Patton Oswalt, I think he would agree. He's a close personal friend to someone. But I think he would have agreed, he would have enjoyed footage of himself getting eaten by a vampire. That seems right up his
Absolutely.
alley.
Yeah. He's like,
well, there were so many good actors that they just kind of didn't give enough to be in this movie.
Such as,
well, Natasha Lyonne like barely has anything. Parker Posey's misused, like James Remar. There's all these like not bad character actors, like pretty good actors who just, in Patton Oswalt, who it's like, I get one small little snarky monologue and then I'm dead.
You also have sorry, David, go ahead.
No, please. You're the guest.
Oh, I was just gonna say John Michael Higgins, who is like primarily in Christopher Guest movies as like very goofy bit roles, is a doctor in this. Is he a doctor? He's like there with the police as well to like help frame Blade, or I don't understand.
His career is crazy. His career in this movie is crazy. He's a psychiatrist who makes television appearances denying and denouncing vampirism, and then he also does house calls to the police station to do psych evals on people who are killing vampires. And then the twist, he's a familiar.
Well, yeah, can we talk about for a second that news segment is wild? We get Eric Bogosian as the interviewer, and he's like, we have two specialists, the chief of police and the psychiatrist. Guys, everyone's saying vampires are real. Like, what news channel is leading with? And then like, they're both like, no, it's not. It turns out that there's this guy who thinks vampires are real, and so he's killing people. And it's like, what?
It's like, it's hard for me to remember how things come to a head without the internet, back in those days, like with no Twitter or social media. It's like, how did we get that it's talked about this much, that it gets this much airtime?
Like, are people just calling in and they're like, oh, saw a vampire at the supermarket today?
I swear I saw it. Eric Bogosian, he's an Interview with a Vampire, the TV show.
Yeah, the newest one. Have
you seen that?
I just started first episode. It's really good. I like it.
Very good. Very fun. Tragic. Sad. It's sad if you're gay. It's very sad. But if not, it's very fun. I stand by that statement.
I think that you have a blanket at your house that said, if you're gay, it's very sad. And if not, it's happy.
From the outside looking in, it looks so fun.
No. There's no context as to what it's about. It's just a blanket that says that.
Yes, I do have a blanket that says that, but also I'm going to make a blanket statement. It's time for a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about everybody's favorite Drake. No. Not from Degrassi Junior High. We're going to talk about Drake the Vampire, Dracula, and the rest of Blade Trinity. So keep it right here to Podcast 616, because my Trinity will be back after this.
Part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
What's up, everybody? Chase Smith here from the Chase Smith Podcast and Cavs on the Break NBA Podcast.
And I'm JD, host of the Hyman Podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network, and we are super excited to bring you a brand new show starting next Tuesday, the Fanfare Podcast.
The Fanfare Podcast is all about your favorite movies and our favorite movies and the best moments in cinema. To help guide our discussion, each episode will feature one classic. and we will grade this movie using a report card-like scale A through F. We're going to be grading categories like acting, directing, cinematography, the score, and even the movie poster itself.
And when we're not featuring a movie report card, we'll be sharing our movie rankings, franchise deep dives, actor and director interviews, and everything in between. Movies have been a major part of our lives, and we cannot wait to share our thoughts with you.
Our premiere episode will drop Tuesday, June 27th, and JD and I will be reviewing Raiders of the Lost Ark in preparation of the release of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny on June 30th, the 5th installment of the franchise.
Join us on the Fanfare Podcast, available on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcast.
Hey everyone, this is Don Mike Mendoza, the host of Producing While Asian. Join us in Season 2 for more conversations with actors, artists, producers, and more from Broadway, Hollywood, and beyond, every other Wednesday on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. Here's how Books with Brooks works. We read one book a month, and then we talk about it. Classics like Stephen King's The Shining, debut novels like We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang, and tons of other compelling, life-changing stories, one book and 1 month at a time. So come read along with us, and then listen in.
And we're back. Cody Lindley, we did some research. Like I said, we did research into both you guys, and you actually interned for Drake the Dracula in your college days. Can you kind of talk to us? What was that like?
Yeah, so I did actually. I was Dominic Purcell's PA and intern, but the entire time he was pretending to be Dracula until they cast him. That's also why he didn't.
Before he was casted.
Yeah. For a full year, and then they cast him, and my job made a lot more sense. But I gotta say, a lot of people think that Dominic Purcell is the human form of Dracula in this movie, but he's actually the red giant guy at the end that he becomes. That's actually day-to-day Dominic Purcell
with the
mouth that goes.
Yeah.
But no, yeah. I mean,
did you feel safe? Did you feel safe?
Yeah, I asked him to bite me a bunch, and he always said, "You don't look tasty."
The biggest insult.
Cody, I have one question.
Yeah.
How many hours a week would you spend like buffing the top of his head to make sure it was very, very shiny?
40 hours. 40? It was my entire job. I would go do everything else, and then the actual on-set time, I wore a green outfit with a green buffer, and I was just buffing his head, but they cut me out of the movie entirely.
You're a green man on set.
I was the green man. I will say that you really don't get, because there are so many bad guys, this kind of suffers from a Spider-Man 3 issue where, like, who do we hate? Because even Drake is like a weird, like, not really bad, but he is bad guy, where he's like fights Blade halfway through, and he's like, actually, I don't want to help the vampires or the humans. I think everyone's weak. It's just me and you, Blade. We're the only two that I respect. And you're like, well, then why are you still going with the vampires' plan? Like,
yeah. And also, yes, his allegiances are so weird, but also, like, they dug him up out of a tomb. So, of course, he would be strange. But it's also such a sucky villain for Blade 3, because he has no relation to Blade, and I feel like the movie's really asking you to lean on your knowledge of Dracula, of like, well, Blade hates vampires, so of course he would hate Dracula the most. Like, it's this ultimate villain, like, I've been waiting for years to kill Dracula.
Yeah, and like it is. The scenes they give him are just weird. Like, they kidnap Zoe, the little girl, and then in one room, all the bad guys are like, "Oh, Ryan Reynolds, we're gonna make you evil and make you eat the little girl." And in the other room, Dominic Purcell's just with her, and he's like, "Would you like to live forever, little girl?" And you're like, "Why are you offering to turn this little girl into a vampire?" It just seems so out of context. And she gets a great line, and this probably the best line in this movie, where she goes, "My friends are coming to kill you," from a child's mouth, which is pretty cool. But yeah, great. I just think Dominic Purcell it was really confusing. Like, I think do the old, again, a very quick fix, have Triple H have all these characters, unearth him, bring him back to life, and then have him show you that he does not care, that he is the ultimate being, and kill them all. So we have one bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
We're dealing with like what the heck is happening. Blade seeing dead vampires, doesn't know, and then we go to Dracula, as opposed to a quirky workplace comedy about vampires and vampire hunters.
Yeah, because he kind of does the vampire's bidding, but not really. There's that amazing chase scene where he takes a baby. Shout out to the woman who got her baby stolen by Dracula. She was really selling it. And Blade's like, where is it? He took my baby. Dracula took my baby. I know Ryan is, pulling for Jessica Biel to get this Oscar, but I think I might give it to that actress. And I just love Dracula holding a baby over a roof. Imagine if he's holding the baby and he looks down and it just says "fuck you" and he's like, "What again?" Wait, I'm just realizing they did do it twice. Mm-hmm. They did a stolen baby bit twice in this movie. Which is really unfortunate because they should have done it 3 times with Trinity, baby. And baby makes 3. Okay. Ryan Kappmeyer, Eddie Drake thoughts?
It's just like, what's going on here? Why? There's so much that they kind of expect you to know about Dracula, but there's a lot that doesn't make sense. Like, Dracula is not like the first vampire or anything, so I don't understand why that's like part of this. It's just weird. And then the final scene,
they do say he's the first vampire. They do say that in this reality
movie, I'm saying.
Yes.
But like in general, I don't think that's the truth, right? Correct. And so it's just weird. It seems like, it's like, whose side is he on? What's he doing other than just taking his shirt off a bunch and putting on armor? I don't have a lot of thoughts. The fact that they kept calling him Drake was just like making me angry more than anything. Yeah. Why the hell are you doing this?
Well, that makes sense because listeners, I don't know if you know this, but Ryan Kappmeyer was actually supposed to be in a music duo with the musician Drake, but kind of got dropped. Still a sore spot, clearly. Mm-hmm. But speaking of music, a poll for the call. What do you think Jessica Biel listens to when she puts on her earbuds? I don't know. I don't know, but I will say that I will give you a real answer in a second. As soon as she did it in the montage at the end where she like puts her headphones on, I was like, "That is you're not going to be able to hear anything in this fight. That's not going to help you." Yeah. I like to think that she's listening to 90s R&B. Ah, very nice. I have an answer as well. Ryan, do you have?
I think she's listening to the band Aqua, because in a different movie she's singing Dr. Jones by Aqua, and I just imagine that that's what she's listening to because she's so happy when she's singing it in the other movie, and so I think that's what she's listening to here.
I see. And for me, I think she's listening to making my way downtown, watching bells, going home when I'm homebound. Some Vanessa Carlton there. Yeah, I feel like this is 2004. This is her time.
Pete Carlton. It's Pete Carlton.
It's Pete Carlton.
Can you imagine if there was at any Starbucks that you walk into?
Can you imagine if there was a scene where like she dies and we don't know what the music is and Blade's like holding her body and a pod falls out and we hear
would have made this movie better.
Truly. And I just think with Jessica Biel, like, I feel like there should have been more of a meal made out of the fact that she's replacing Whistler. Like, this is Whistler. This is his, and Cody, you'll get this. Maybe I've seen one episode of Buffy with Ryan, but that's Blade's Giles, like that's the like in this, it just feels like in vampire lore, when vampire hunter lore, there's the hunter and then the person who cares for the hunter.
The Van Helsing.
Yes. And to lose Whistler for some is a tragedy, not for me. And I just feel like I don't think we needed the Night Stalkers as much as I loved seeing the cast of Misfits. Again, to fix this movie, make them siblings. Ryan Reynolds, Jessica Biel, they're Whistler's kids. They're here to help Blade, and they're going to take on Dracula. And that's how you fix it. Also, wait a minute. I want to talk about the one plot that really made me laugh. So there's this whole idea that Dracula's blood can either make vampires walk in the daylight, or it can eradicate vampires completely if the humans get a hold of it. And I think it's like Project Daystar, I think is what they call it.
Yeah.
Which could have been an Instagram handle for me, but I've changed it to something else I'll reveal at the end of the podcast. But my favorite scene is when Natasha Lyonne has died and they strung up her body, which if you go back, she's not hanging, she's literally standing. When they hang up Natasha Lyonne's body, she's fully just standing.
Yeah,
in that
her feet
shower
are on the ground and she's just like this.
Oh yeah. But she has this video of like, in case you're watching this, I've died. And they throw in this curveball at the end. She's like, okay, and if you get his blood, you can eradicate vampires everywhere. Okay, take care. By the way, it could also kill Blade. Bye. Just the
amount of info dump in that video, because she somehow got close enough to finish Daystar without completing it, and took that time to instead record a video saying, I might die through a vampire raid, and if I do, let me tell you everything I've done for the last month.
Instead of just keeping her alive for the end of the movie to tell us in person, but okay.
Yeah.
She also says, she's like, yeah, sorry, Blade. Like, I didn't have time to test it out. It's like, how were you planning on testing this out on hybrid, half human, half vampires? Is there a subject?
He's the only one
subject group for this? Were you going to a university to get like research funding? I don't understand what you were planning on doing.
And also, this movie, they've never really, in all three Blade movies, this is the one knock I will give all three, they don't really explain how pure blood vampires come to be. Like, are they born?
Well,
like,
when a mommy vampire and a daddy vampire love each other very much.
Here we go. Cody, you've been trying to tell me the story for years. I don't want to know.
It's too heteronormative. I understand.
Yeah, I'm gay. I don't want to know how babies are born. Not relevant.
No, yeah, they don't really explain it. They just kind of make up these arbitrary rules. But yeah, it's so dumb, because then like the second movie, they create the vampires, the Reapers, and you're like, well, shouldn't they also be allowed to live in your rules, vampires? They're like, no.
No. I still have Vanessa Carlton in my head. No. But yeah, it's like, because I'm like, isn't Blade a pure blood vampire? I think that's where I'm like kind of leaning towards, because like he was born because his mom, Sanaa Lathan, was bit. So I'm just like, I don't know. It's loose. The lore is loose.
It's so a Dhampir is half human, half vampire. Some beliefs are like, if a human and a vampire have sex, that's how you get a Dhampir. With Blade, it's that like he's actively being born but still connected via the umbilical cord, and when he like feeds, he passes the virus onto Blade, but instead of becoming a full vampire, he's half human. I don't know, it's very complicated.
Yeah. Also, have you noticed like, well, I was going to say, did you notice how like his thirst for human blood only was talked about in the first movie, and they kind of just dropped it for the rest
and then until the end of this movie, and then Dracula's like, hey, good job, that was a good fight, but also you're gonna want to kill one day.
Yeah, just like Natasha Lyonne's video at the end, like, also this.
It's interesting. I don't know if you've talked about this on your other episodes, Damon. I didn't hear it in episode 1, but do you know that they've done a big push to make Blade part of the like mainstream MCU a lot more? He always has been a hero. He sometimes shows up in crossovers, but like he's part of the Avengers now pretty consistently. He's in a lot of other things. They just went real Blade heavy like 5 years ago. It's nuts. A lot of common events right now involve Blade.
This is in the comic books, right?
Yeah.
Well, it could be they're trying to because I know he's coming back. We'll be talking about Werewolf by Night next week. And I've watched it twice now, and there's some like Blade references I think they make there, but I still don't. I still miss them every time. But yeah, I think Blade could be having a renaissance. I think when you bomb this bad, you gotta take some time to build back that credibility. Okay, any highlights on this final fight? Yada yada yada. The kidnap. Also, why do vampires always kidnap people? They did this in the first Blade movie. They kidnapped Dr. Karen, who, again, Dr. Karen, the true hero of the Blade franchise. She cured vampirism, and we never talk about her. But they kidnapped Dr. Karen, and then in this movie they kidnapped Natasha Lyonne's kid just to lure Blade. So he goes to get her, swords fights with Dracula, and then Ryan Reynolds and Parker Posey, again, in my opinion, improvise their way through the scene. Were there any highlights from this fight, or this when they like the silver stuff comes to the vents? Or I was gonna say delete. They delete the vampires. They like, what do? They put the blood in the thing, and then the particles.
It like
combine.
releases an airborne virus that kills the vampires or something.
Yeah, it seems to just kind of mummify them, and then the sun rises and then wipes them out.
I don't necessarily have any highlights, but I do think this, like a lot of the action in this movie, The Matrix was mentioned briefly earlier. I do think this movie is like of that era of movies that followed for like probably the better part of a decade, where like the action tried to mimic that of The Matrix,
Yeah.
but not very well. This movie in particular. So that's just one thought that I had. I was like, this feels like they're trying to be The Matrix.
Oh yeah, especially like they're in like some office building, which to me, that conference room read more as like the inside of a blimp. But it just looked like there was like tin. I guess they were doing it to mask the sun, but it just looked like there was tin foil all over.
It was
not
it was
a very
wild.
good sword fight.
Mm-mm.
Go ahead, Cody.
No, I would say that my probably the actual highlight, as much as we've kind of dunked on him for the start of the Ryan Reynoldsism that he carried through, his like how he gets rid of the dogs was really clever. I liked that with him like having them chase to the building, and then he jumps up, and then in his hubris knocks his falls back into the pit and has to fight Triple H. I thought that was like a cool fight. That was almost like the drunken master type thing where the hero's not really doing good, but he's kind of lucking into winning the fight.
Mm-hmm. Ryan, you had your finger in the air.
I did, because we talked a lot about how like wrestlers of that era became actors, and one thing I thought would have been nice is if like Triple H would have used one of his actual like finishing wrestling moves, because like The Rock has done like the rock bottom and that kind of stuff when they've been in movies. So I was like, that would have been like, I don't know if it would have like added a lot to the movie, but like that would have been a fun little like, I don't know, nod to his other career. Like,
oh yeah, I fully wanted him to do his like water spray thing, but with blood, where he goes.
Oh yeah,
it's like a blood spray everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm coming away. This is a win for Triple H. I'll say it right now. I think he did great. I loved how he had like little silver fangs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's the thing: put Triple H in like if this had been like a Marvel movie, I think he would have had a similar career to like a Dave Bautista. He would have become like a weird crowd favorite villain, even though Dave Bautista is Drax and we love him. But you know what I mean? Like a wrestler who can kind of act goofy and funny, and you just have him come back as the side character again and again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, why wasn't Triple H Dracula? I would have liked that. Well, they didn't know.
I don't know if I would have.
That's a lot of pressure. Never mind. I take it back. Take it back. I don't want to see him
for this like sort of like henchman role. Like he's already got the look, like he has the long blonde hair, and he's a big dude. But yeah, I don't know what his acting chops are like.
You don't want to see him in that Dracula corset they put Dominic Martell in.
I do want to see that, but not necessarily as part of this movie.
What a weird outfit. Just like very low cut, but with high shoulders.
I think we were all just kind of confused in the early 2000s about what things were.
Yes, we were often confused back then about what things were. But you know what? I'm not confused about what things are right now. That's the fuck, marry, kill. That's right, folks. It is time once again for us to choose a character in the movie. When we will fuck, when we will marry, when we will kill. And y'all, this is Blade Trinity. The work is done for us. On the docket is, for the last time, Blade. And for the first time, Abigail Whistler, aka Jessica Biel, and Hannibal King, aka Ryan Reynolds. I will go first to give my guest time to think. Just to remind everybody, I'm not saying the right answer. I'm just saying my answers. But I do think my answers are the right answers. Okay, I will. Let's start positively. I'm gonna marry Blade. You know, Blade didn't do anything wrong in this movie for me. Blade's just being Blade. I think he was a little hostile to the Night Stalkers when he met them, but his friend had just died. That makes sense. I'm gonna marry him. He'll keep me safe, and I'll just trace his little tattoos on the back of his neck when we sleep at night. That'll be cute. That's marriage. I said to a married man and an engaged man. Take some marriage advice from me, please. My fuck will be Ryan Reynolds because I'm not an idiot. Did you see where that tattoo was? I wanted to see more. He would annoy me with his quips, but it would just be for one night. And yeah, I think he would be we would have a great time. It'd be great. My kill. I wonder who did I find most superfluous? And that would be Abigail Whistler. I'm gonna kill her. I'm sorry to all you Beale heads out there. I know that's why you're listening. I have a huge Seventh Heaven fan base, and they are incredibly excited for this episode. But gonna kill Beale. Kill Beale, like Kill Bill, but kill Beale. I just was not impressed. I'm sorry. I know Ryan's furious. He is destroying his home as we speak. Banging his head. But I'm going to take her arrows and I'm going to shoot her through the heart, like that song, Shot Through the Heart. Ryan, you go next as our most senior guest. You've done 3 of these now. Please show us how it's done.
I appreciate you. Yeah, you said some of your answers were the right answers, and I'll agree with you on one, which is that I'm going to marry Blade. I feel like he looks out for those he cares about. I'd feel very safe with him walking around the streets of Gotham, New York,
Gotham, New
Syria, York. Wherever we're at in this movie. Gotham, New York, Chicago, DC, Baltimore,
coast
Miami.
To coast.
Yeah, exactly. Anywhere.
Definitely not Miami.
I know. I'm just kind of painting a picture for those who haven't seen this movie, where the ambiguity around where this movie takes place. Could it be Miami? I don't know. Maybe someone who's never been to Miami wrote this.
I bet.
Anyways, I digress. I am going to kill Ryan Reynolds. His quips would just annoy me.
You just don't want him to be on my podcast ever.
I don't want to be on your podcast ever again. And this is my way of telling you, my very good friend, that is the case. No, I mean, I think I would just get infuriated. If I actually had to be in the same room with this person, I'd be like, I want to leave. Where is the closest exit? I'm going for it. Mm-hmm. And also, he was a vampire. They might turn him into another vampire. They're trying to get him to eat that little girl. He didn't seem to be like, no, I'm strong enough to not eat this little girl. I don't want him eating me. And then lastly, I guess I'll just woe is me. I'll have to fuck Jessica Biel. I'm a Biel Lieber.
No.
I mostly did that to see your reaction.
Well, I'm a Biel Lieber.
There's the Justin Bieber fans are believers. I'm a Biel Lieber. And I'll end with that, mostly so I can continue to see Damon's reaction.
All right. Excuse me. I need to mop up my vomit from that last answer. But Cody Lindley, please close us out.
A romantic wedding for me and Jessica Biel as we enter the 7th of heavens. We are going to be so happy together. She seems athletic, fit. She's going to get me in shape. We're going to fight vampires together, but one night when we're staying up late, Hannibal King's going to turn to me and he's going to be like, but do you want to see how I became a vampire? And then he's not going to stop for the camera. And so I'm going to make a mistake and Biel's going to be so mad at me, but I'm going to sleep with.
Is she also in the bed at this time?
Yeah, but she's just watching judgmentally. So I'm going to marry Abigail Whistler, fuck Hannibal King, and you know what? It's just because of the production troubles, and he acts like he wants to die so bad. So I'm going to kill Blade. I'm going to give him that gift. Ryan said he likes to take care of the people in his life, but Whistler dies in every movie.
Not necessarily because of anything Blade did.
That's true, but Blade's Blade's, and as you guys said in episode 1, he's really about killing vampires, not saving people.
That's true. But I do want to point out, every time Whistler died, it's because he killed himself.
That's true. But that's how
These
I'm
are
going
your
down
answers.
with.
Your answers, please. Wow. Okay. That feels fitting in the final episode of these Blade movies. One person kills Blade. That feels right.
Somebody should.
I think David Escoyer did, our writer-director. That is the podcast. Ryan, Cody, thank you so much for being here. Do you guys have anything to plug? Any franchise fanatic shows to plug?
Yeah, we host a movie, not Marvel specific, podcast called Franchise Fanatics, where we talk about franchises, the movies in them. It's a lot of fun. Go give it a listen. So far, we've done Back to the Future, Ocean's 11, Scream, and I'm forgetting one. Prey,
Austin
Predator,
Powers,
and Austin Powers.
Oh, I knew every other franchise you just said. I didn't know you did Oceans and Austin, but I did know Back to the Future and Scream. That's awesome. Where can we follow you guys online?
At Franchise Fanatics on Instagram, and for me, it's at Cody.A.Lindley.
For me, on anything where I can be found, it's at Kappmeyer Dude. If you can spell my last name, congratulations, you found me.
Well, just look at your phone right now because it's spelled correctly on this podcast episode.
True.
I'll help you out. You can listen to this or you can find this podcast on Instagram. We're on Instagram at podcast616p3. That's podcast616p3, and that P3 stands for Press Play Podcasts, our podcasting network that allows me to do Blade all October long. Also, this is our spooky season. I forgot to say that. If you want to follow me, I've changed my name. I'm on Instagram at Black Chandler, and Black is spelled BLK, Chandler like Chandler Bing. I'm gonna ride with it for a while. It feels accurate.
I'm surprised you're not Black Frasier, but I'll allow it.
No. I'm gay Frasier, but I'm Black Chandler.
Fair.
Cry for me, please. Send help. Okay, that is our episode. Ryan, Kappmeyer, Cody Lindley, thank you guys so much for coming back and doing this episode with me.
Thank you.
Next week, we're wrapping up our scary month with a episode about Werewolf by Night, the Disney Plus Marvel special. So we'll be talking about that next week. But until then, don't forget that with great power comes even greater Blade responsibility.